Days before Hurricane Isaac made landfall in southeast Louisiana, Mayor Mitch Landrieu declared a state of emergency, telling residents the city was ready.
There is an army of individuals working right now to protect the health and safety of the people of New Orleans.
New Orleans was mostly spared from flooding, except areas outside the levee protection system. Power outages and wind damage were the biggest problems after the storm. CAO Andy Copland says city workers, top to bottom, pitched in to help.
From near misses with sewer and water board generation, which could have caused water boil notices during that time, to making sure that we had folks with severe health issues that were being able to be pulled out of compromised positions. And so we made sure that we took care of the health and safety of the public.
The city says it spent more than $5 million on emergency pay and overtime for Isaac, $3.2 million for police, $662,000 for firefighters, $346,000 for EMS, and $888,000 for other departments and agencies.
We had hundreds of people actually living in City Hall, as well as in the police districts and the fire districts who worked here and then slept here when they weren't working.
They're robbing the city blind, and with this extra overtime pay, and I think that the citizens should be alarmed about that.
At a time when many city departments and agencies are facing big budget cuts, it's one chunk of that post-Isaac payroll in particular that Randolph Scott, former City Hall employee spokesperson, is having a hard time understanding.
It's because their salaries are already high salaries. Above like six-figure salaries, most of them.
The city's 6 deputy mayors and health director, who on average make more than $150,000 a year and are normally exempt from making overtime, collectively raked in more than $100,000 in both emergency pay and overtime. Fox 8 scoured payroll documents from the end of August through the end of September. Copland, who makes $179,000 a year, earned an extra $14,000, 117 hours worth of emergency pay, 58 hours of overtime. Cedric Grant, who's in charge of facilities and infrastructure, was paid for 117 hours of overtime, racking up almost $16,000 more than usual.
When we needed new generators for the sewer and water board facilities, Deputy Mayor Grant was leading the charge in the middle of the night to get generation flown in to New Orleans so we wouldn't have to have a water boil.
Deputy Mayor of Public Safety Jerry Sneed also saw an extra $16,000 post-Isaac. Chief of Staff Judy Morse earned an additional $12,000, including 60 hours of OT. Deputy Mayor of Operations Michelle Thomas got paid an additional $14,000, 108 hours of emergency pay, 70 hours of overtime.
We had folks who were out there inspecting capital projects that are under construction right now. Property management staff were 24/7 making sure that our city assets were being protected during the storm from additional damage.
Emily Arata, Deputy Mayor of External Affairs, earned more than $12,000 extra dollars because of Isaac. And documents show Health Commissioner Karen DeSalvo worked 134 hours for the storm, including almost 90 hours of overtime. She earned more than $17,000 extra. The average city worker?
Time and a half with a salary on average of $25,000. I think the increase would be minuscule at best, maybe several $100s at best.
Also for the first time, captains and above at the NOPD made overtime. Chief Ronald Serpaz told the council this week the city did the right thing.
In the city of New Orleans, and I want to appreciate and thank the mayor for this, we paid the white shirts, if you will, this time. And they were here 50, 60, 80 hours nonstop.
Serpaz got paid extra too. Because of his $189,000 a year salary, he actually saw the fattest post-Isaac check at the NOPD. He earned $19,098 in one pay period, almost $12,000 more than he usually makes. Fraternal Order of Police spokesperson Raymond Burkhart doesn't question the extra police compensation. He does wonder why the mayor's executive staff cashed in.
I think it's safe to say anybody making over 6 figures who is politically appointed or is politically elected is expected to go above and beyond versus the $40,000 policeman or even the $60,000 policeman who is on the front lines doing the search and rescue. I don't believe that was the intent of the rule of the law.
The higher-ups in the fire department also earned OT for the first time. New Orleans Fire Chief Charles Parent's overtime and emergency pay was lumped into one check for almost $19,000, almost $13,000 more than his normal paycheck.
I think there are certain salary exempt employees that should get paid. For example, in the fire department, we have deputy chiefs and district chiefs who are not paid during Hurricane Katrina. Okay, and they worked unusually long days, month after month.
But Nick Felton, who heads up the firefighters union, says he too is concerned and puzzled by the Isaac payroll figures for the mayor's top aides.
I just don't see when you have people making six-figure salaries that are known. They knew that coming in, that their job is going to require them to work long hours. They're supposed to be the best and the brightest. And absolutely, it doesn't show well if the mayor or anyone authorized that pay to be done.
The big picture here is that in an emergency, there are essential personnel that are called out that are required to stay on duty 24/7 for as long as the emergency lasts. So they're not able to be with their families, they don't get time off, they're required to be on site.
And then there's the highest paid person on the city's payroll, a man who already makes $227,000 a year. New Orleans Aviation Director Iftikhar Ahmad's post-Isaac paycheck was more than twice as much as his normal biweekly check. It totaled $17,796. So high-paid, salaried city employees who have historically been exempt from earning overtime cashed in like never before. We wanted to know how and why now. Our investigation uncovered the answer actually dates back to 2010 and a civil service rule change that apparently no one paid much attention to. It was shortly after the BP oil spill off the Louisiana coast. Mayor Landrieu issued an emergency declaration. Jerry Sneed monitored the potential impact.
We're preparing for the worst. Hopefully we won't get any oil, but we think we have a plan in place.
At the same time, Sneed petitioned the Civil Service Commission to change a decades-old rule specifically relating to emergency overtime compensation in connection with the BP spill, to allow all exempt employees, which includes those who aren't hourly, to be compensated for extra hours worked. The commission agreed, and while it was explained to that panel that the rule change would involve overtime pay, that's not how it was explained to the city council right before they voted.
It redefines disasters as pretty much anything the mayor declares. Disasters before were mainly about disasters that dealt with hurricanes. This is particularly for the BP oil spill.
In reality, the proposed change was not just for the BP spill, and it didn't just redefine disasters. It redefined who could make emergency overtime during any future disaster declaration. We were curious if council members really understood what they unanimously approved. Jackie Clarkson, Stacey Head, and Kristen Palmer all had no comment. Susan Guidry and Cynthia Hedge-Morell never got back to us.
If they didn't know, that they should have known, and I think it's no excuse that if they're already paying people top salaries when they come in city government, and then they're trying to find a way to pay them additional monies of taxpayers' money, and the city council has already been crying that the city is broke.
They may all get an earful during the fire department's upcoming budget hearing, as NOFD faces cuts in service and personnel.
It will be part of our discussions, and maybe we need to rethink any changes and maybe put some new regulations in place that would prevent this type of abuse.
With more than $5 million already paid out of the general fund for Isaac payroll, the city says FEMA has agreed to reimburse most of the costs, about 75%.
If the rule is not in place prior to the disaster, FEMA will not allow you to get reimbursed for that overtime. So the rule has to be in place.
It does matter, because I think that it matters because we shouldn't be exploiting FEMA. I think FEMA has a role to play, and FEMA is supposed to help the needy and not the greedy.
Like other local parishes, the city sent a letter to Governor Jindal asking the state to waive the remaining 25%. Whether that break will come remains to be seen. Either way, taxpayers foot the bill as top city executives cash in for the first time during an emergency in a city with a history of disasters.